What is wrong with the modern individual? Why are they so exhausted, unworthy, and miserable? Their actions and life so imbued with depressive emptiness? If our age is believed to be one of extreme opportunities, invigorating challenges and possibilities for freedom, why is most of the population so unhappy, poor both in heart and estate, and distant to an inner, self-sufficient sense of guidance, like lost sheep easily manipulated by shepherds and butchers? This condition is now often accompanied by the modern term burnout. Burnout refers to an excess of labor with a deficit of meaning, leading to a state of drained and exhausted being. It emerged from obsessive, futile effort directed toward nothingness. This nothingness is generally concealed by a facade of false, popularized, enforced, and unjustified purpose. When the unbearable and cruel awareness of one's misery grows, this withdrawal into nothingness through labor often becomes the only salvation, a deceptive, self-indulgent comfort. Having a meaning implies multiplication, the expansion of likeness, and when one is overcome by such emptiness, the multiplication of this very emptiness is capable of generating a distant valuable spark, an echo of satisfaction and fullness. But to live by this spark alone, in the nihilistic abyss, is not possible after all. A turning point awaits the one who has voluntarily given himself over to the modern form of enslavement, a forced change that will put this infamous struggle to either a tragic or a hopeful end. It will either break the individual completely or will make them wiser in their recovery and further prevention of such fall. The true issue with burnout is not just physical exhaustion, but also the mental toll it takes. Even with sufficient rest, many find themselves still drained, not necessarily because their bodies are tired, but because their spirits are tormented, sacrificed, dishonored. It's a deeper disillusionment, where the soul feels as though it has been buried alive under the weight of pointless activity. This dissatisfaction is not something that a vacation or even leisure can fully solve, because rest only treats the symptoms, not their root cause. Today, since an increasing number of individuals are experiencing perpetual stress, disaster, and exhaustion, being mentally and emotionally weary makes the task of achieving mental well-being almost utopical. Burnout, at its core, is a manifestation of a much broader crisis, the profound dissatisfaction of the modern individual. This dissatisfaction, to some extent, is the result of the atrophy of our capacity for contentment. We are bombarded by compulsive distraction and consumerism, both of which numb our ability to find real fulfillment. We will explore strategies for dealing with it by the end of this letter, opening the way to a Hyperborean realm where burnout ceases to exist. We will begin, however, with examining some myths that provide us with the archetypical fundament for the burnout phenomenon within an individual modern soul. Today, everyone is an auto-exploiting laborer in his or her own enterprise. People are now master and slave in one. Even class struggle has transformed into an inner struggle against oneself. Byung-Chul Han, The Burnout Society. What is the nature of labor that torments with meaninglessness? Sisyphus was the mortal who dared to defy the gods and temporarily cheat death. As a punishment, he was condemned to roll a huge stone up a steep mountain. His heavy breathing can be heard throughout the underworld. Sweat streams down his face, and at the moment when the top of the mountain is near, and he seemingly can soon sit down to rest, the stone breaks out of his hands and rolls down. Sisyphus has to run after it and push it up the mountain again, and so it goes on, day after day. Sisyphus' hard but vain labor never ends. This cycle was his fate, repeating without pause, each ascent erased by the descent, over and over, for eternity. From a distance, one might think that the essence of his torment lies in the nullification of his efforts, the fact that his labor is always undone. But is it what truly makes his condition so disastrous and hopelessly absurd? The true torture goes deeper into the very nature of the labor itself. What makes Sisyphus' task unbearable is not that the stone falls back each time, but that the work is endlessly repetitive, robotic, utterly devoid of purpose or progress. The stone's relentless descent may mock his efforts, yet it is the forced, mindless routine that turns his sentence into something profoundly absurd. The spirit does not break because of failure alone. It is crushed by labor that lacks meaning, labor that serves nothing but itself. Sisyphus is trapped in a cycle that renders him little more than a machine, robbed of the freedom to pursue or create anything truly fulfilling. Albert Camus found in the myth of Sisyphus a great allegory of human existence. As a solution, he encouraged embracing this ontological absurdity. But this solution is dangerous and absurd in itself. There is nothing to embrace except that very nothingness, the nihilistic void, whose embrace will only annihilate us completely. Camus' way leads only to a dead end, since such cynicism is akin to Faustian bargain, illustrating a man's readiness to sign with his own blood the selling of soul to the devil, that most despisable and worthless part of him, in exchange for hope of a single moment of happiness. Indeed, Descartes and Cicero were right when they said that one cannot conceive anything so strange and so implausible that it has not already been said by one philosopher or another. The modern working class, the masses, are, in essence, a mass of condemned Sisyphuses. They toil in endless cycles of repetitive work, pushing stones up mountains of meaningless tasks that only roll back down, day after day. Yet, as if the course of Sisyphus were not enough, they carry with their routine a dark echo of the Passion of Christ motives, glorifying the sufferings of that executed demigod to whom they empathize with on a large scale. They reflect on themselves the sorrow of tenacious lives yet again, eroding their true selves under the weight of a life that drains their essence in an unloved place, surrounded by colleagues who share in the contagion of mutual unhappiness, each worn down, each bitter. There is no fellowship with bone, leaving them nameless, faceless, merely an instrument of labor. They are Sisyphean Christ figures, condemned to a passion without purpose, a suffering without transcendence, inching toward a final, unceremonious decay, without the faintest whisper of resurrection to follow after. Each one keeps carrying their cross, the burdens of repetitive work, the erosion of spirit, the silent agony of unloved places and resentful faces. With every monotonous task, every dehumanizing routine, they press onward, until finally, this notoriously glorified agony culminates in becoming one with the cross. In this strange, fiery fusion and crucifixion, the last breath of life burns away, small and unremarkable, like a single match struck and then extinguished. This burnout is no blaze of glory, no final burst of brilliance, but a quiet, unremarkable end, where their lives dissolve into ashes. In their ashes, the long-awaited peace is found, peace even from having to lament their fate, for this peace is a mere denial of life itself, the life unfulfilled. We can avoid this fate by refusing to crucify our dearest passions, refusing to waste our potential on miserly, petty burdens. But the next myth will show us how our own inner dimensions can terrorize and restrain us from doing so. There is one more Greek archetype, the legend of which sheds light on the condition in question. Prometheus, the Titan god of forethought, as a discerning craftsman, was entrusted with the task of shaping mankind from clay. His desire to elevate his creation to grant them a brighter existence, led him into defiance against Zeus, the king of gods. Prometheus' proactive, visionary nature stands in stark contrast with his brother Epimetheus, whose name means afterthought. Epimetheus acts rather impulsively and without foresight. He was a father of excuses, a proverbial fool. When the gods decided to populate the earth with mankind and animals, Epimetheus was tasked with giving them qualities and gifts. But in his haste, he squandered all the virtues, strength, speed, courage, on the animals, leaving nothing for humanity. Then Prometheus boldly stole the fire from the heavens and bestowed it upon mankind. Prometheus taught people how to use fire, taught them to preserve it, and, if necessary, to create it themselves. He also taught humans reason and the art of thinking. He explained the basics of all sciences and crafts. The humans began to write, read, understand the stars, know everything about the bowels of the earth, extract minerals and process them. In retribution for these rebellious deeds, Zeus devised the creation of the woman Pandora to bring misfortune and suffering to humanity, ensuring they would never know the company of the benevolent spirits alone. Meanwhile, Prometheus was bound in eternal torment to the rocks of Mount Caucasus, where an eagle perpetually feasted on his regenerating liver. Yet, after countless generations, the great hero Heracles arrived, and with unwavering strength, freed the noble Titan from his unending agony. In a certain way, Prometheus stands for our inner, active, talented genius, as opposed to Epimetheus, his less prominent counterpart. When Prometheus acts within us, we are carrying the divine fire as a gift to humanity. The gift of fire is manifested in a natural talent that has the power to transform, inspire, and bring joy, shared selflessly with the world. As a symbol of enlightenment and creative potential, the fire is a gift meant to elevate, not to be squandered. Burnout means the loss of this gift of fire when it fails to reach its proper destination, which are the hearts of other human beings. Prometheus, the flame-bearer, is fooled while on his way, and the divine offering is stolen from him. The gifted, brilliant spirit within is betrayed, turned against itself. The fire slips away from its purpose, no longer burning for its perpetual meaning, but merely burning out. This loss is Prometheus' punishment, and his own spirit, from which there is no escape, is tormenting him without end, unless the might of Heracles will break the chains and set him free. Heracles represents our strength to fight for freedom, for the right of doing things in their proper way, inspiring way. Heracles is the force within us to resist depletion, to defy burnout. This is what Prometheus requires to be freed from the torment that feels infinite. In the same archetypical sense, Zeus represents the authority of the intellect, the knowledge of the apparently proper order of things that binds the universe together. This knowledge, however, can be biased and flawed, leading to disastrous consequences and decisions, as those of the incompetent ruler. Only when our inner Zeus is foolish enough is he punishing Prometheus, the creative spirit, for daring to share the most precious of all gifts with the world. In the wastage of this gift, the neglect or obstruction of our natural talent, our inherent genius, burnout takes hold. That talent, the fire, is not merely drained but defiled, wasted, reducing work to a hollow task. The spring of highest joy, fulfillment, and pride dries up, and the gift of fire within withers, bringing about that notorious state of burnout, and emptiness deeper than mere exhaustion. And so, we face the loss of the very thing that once lit us, the gift that could have brought warmth, brilliance, and inspiration, now slipping away, leaving only ashes behind. The modern phenomenon of burnout is not inherently a consequence of work per se. Rather, it stems from a deeper conflict, Self-defiance within work, the act of doing what one neither loves nor believes in. This is akin to participating in the endless rat race, a cycle where individuals work for money only to spend it and repeat the process, treating their basic physical needs as the ultimate goal rather than a means to something greater. Their own emotions and desires become the means of succeeding in this race. Most of the population is not even aware why they are following these imposed values, becoming what Heidegger called desmond. The individuals who become consumed by the conformist expectations of society, losing their sense of self in the process. Desmond refers to an understanding or set of understandings of how we ought to think, value, and act. It is rooted in the society to which we belong, though not specifically attributable to any particular members of that society. It dominates our actions in our inauthentic everydayness. The Desmond is the realist subject of everydayness, the agency through which most things come about, while design, in contrast, stands in subjection. It represents the authentic self. The Desmond prescribes the kind of being of everydayness, relieving design of its choice, its formation of judgments, and its estimation of values. It determines how and what one sees, and governs every interpretation of the world and of design. We are unhappy in erasing our joy in compulsive and pointless work, instead of re-evaluating those beliefs that sanctify the cult of enormous productivity and consumption as a corollary. Through such re-evaluation, however, we can become like those whom Nietzsche praised as the free spirits. In his Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the conformist man is like a camel, bending his back under a vast burden of imposed values. If he succeeds in transforming himself, then his spirit becomes a lion, the fighter for freedom, making his way with Heraclean might. Finally, the spirit then starts anew, becoming playful and innocent, like a child, reaching its primordial state, free to create and assert new values. The childhood can reveal our natural inclinations, to discover our life's calling, since it is the time when our true essence is not yet lost under the pressure of need to align with external expectation. For now, we should make it clear that burnout doesn't arise directly from work, but from self-denial, an attempt to fill the void of vanity masquerading as self-pursuit. The society of achievement, where individuals perform tasks they intrinsically deem meaningless, which they will regret on their deathbed, is akin to the robotical work of Sisyphus. It is a pathological way of channeling human energy, where no genuine sense of accomplishment or fulfillment can emerge. The real exhaustion isn't just from the tasks we do, but from denying our deeper callings in favor of superficial, unmeaningful achievement. The book The Burnout Society offers a critique of the modern obsession with vita activa, the active life, a relentless focus on doing, producing, and achieving at the expense of vita contemplativa, the contemplative life. The imbalance leans overwhelmingly toward action, neglecting contemplation, reflection, and leisure. What if the antidote to burnout is not in doing at all, but in being, in restoring a balance where contemplative life, or vita contemplativa, is seen as equally essential, as a deeply natural state of being that must be cultivated and protected? True rest is not passive idleness, but a meaningful form of leisure, an art in itself, an art which is lost and ought to be restored. Restoring contemplation would allow us to engage in leisure as something profoundly regenerative rather than empty time-filling. Our minds and spirits are not meant to be ceaselessly active, burning at both ends. When we live unnaturally, our natural vitality fades, leaving us hollowed out, spent by tasks that offer no true fulfillment. After we spend time in peaceful contemplation, we are then able to observe ourselves in the work that genuinely resonates with our true calling. And this is a perfect antidote to burnout. It is not any work itself that exhausts us, but work that has no true connection to our inner purpose. To contemplate is to honor a natural state of being, to reclaim the meaningful leisure that allows us to reconnect with our core. It is in this cultivation of vita contemplativa that we allow our spirits to breathe, to renew, and to heal. The popular Maslow's theory of self-actualization hints at a similar insight as the life's calling concept, though Maslow focused heavily on fulfilling basic needs as prerequisites for meaning. Yet overemphasis on these basics alone risks leaving a person stuck in a limited framework. Genuine fulfillment arises when the individual is engaged with something meaningful beyond mere survival, beyond mindless conformity of the Dasman. It is in the pursuit of a higher calling, a purpose that transcends the immediate needs. Such purpose is a source of which a person finds true resilience and energy. But there are many dangers of false purposes out there. When we align ourselves with external pressures, seeking a goal imposed by the vague demands of the Dasman, the force of faceless, unthinking acceptance, we risk losing ourselves. Conformity to the hollow purposes of others leaves us bereft, cut off from the vitality of genuine purpose. This is burnout in its most insidious form, a slow erosion of energy devoted to something that does not fulfill, that does not answer any true need within us, although at first glance it seems to do so. The examples of false purposes are the cliché pursuit of wealth and money, abstract success, attention and popularity, various short-living causes and cults, the downward pull of the group in general. Worshipping these simulacrums is a form of postmodern idolatry. It is a trap. The purpose is built not for our own fulfillment, but to sustain the ever-turning wheels of society's demands. We conform, we obey, but at what cost? A person needs not only to act, but to feel that their action holds meaning, a guiding purpose that directs their efforts. Yet, that purpose must be true, internal, deeply rooted in who they are. Only the free spirit, one who reevaluates and creates values, can break free from this. To be bold enough to seek true purpose is the task of the strong, of the genuinely inspired. It is this free spirit who resists the erosion of burnout by creating their own values. A life with purpose is not a life without labor or any work. It is a life where the labor aligns with the deepest contours of the self. The modern obsession with vita activa, or this notorious cult of productivity with constant doing, striving, producing, has led us astray, edging us closer to burnout. For in losing ourselves in mindless productivity, we lose ourselves in the truest sense. The antidote to burnout may well be found in discovering and devoting ourselves to our life's true calling. Losing oneself, but in the right work, is where rejuvenation lies. This path calls us back to purpose, a true purpose, not dictated by external voices, but by a deeper sense of calling. In this unbalanced culture, mental disorders have become the most frequent cause of absence from work for a year or more. This speaks not only to the demands of our time, but to the pressure exerted upon the individual psyche. Burnout manifests as emotional exhaustion, but it is more than that. It is the symptom of a larger force at play, the cult of performance, the unyielding worship of achievement. We live in a world where productivity is idolized, where reaching the next goal, the next achievement, is not merely a pursuit, but a demand. External requirements become internal commandments, forcibly woven into the fabric of our inner guidance system. What was once external, standards, targets, the voice of authority, seeps into the self, self-imposed and self-policed, is a trait of the aftermath of what Michel Foucault called the disciplinary society. Fundamentally, its characteristics are still in action, only reshaped and metamorphosed due to technology and cultural shifts. Foucault traced the roots of mental disorders to the pressures imposed by disciplinary society, where every step, every thought, every movement was regulated by external authority. Today, we have entered a post-disciplinary age, but the pressure has not vanished. It has only shifted. These are the main attributes of this post-disciplinary condition. First, modern society has eliminated the lines between our institutions. Leisure has blurred into work, no longer a break but an extension of productivity. The schools and universities, once sanctuaries for learning and contemplation, have morphed into a preparatory arena for enterprise. Second, there is almost no space left untouched by the eye of open control, where everyone is engaged in watching, regulating, and comparing through the lens of social media. Privacy, once guarded, is now surrendered willingly, and control is exercised without overt force, through the voluntary gaze, the endless feed, the silent judgment or noisy cancel scandal. Third, the imperative for constant novelty further intensifies this burden. Business itself obviously thrives on everlasting innovation, yet this demand for endless novelty seeps into personal lives and is then exploited by consumeristic habits. The very notion of desire has been commercialized, and we are compelled to seek the new endlessly through purchasing and insatiable hunger that leads only to exhaustion. Adapt or die, it is said. Optimize or become obsolete. The individual is thrown into a race against a world that shifts ever faster, each change imposing upon them a new requirement to survive. Fourth, in this postmodern context, the clash of values, the fractured worldviews, lead the individual into an eventual state of uncertainty and existential dissonance. They become haunted by stress and anxiety, a pervasive, gnawing feeling of inadequacy. Finally, even those who resist this culture of performance, those who wish to break free from its demands, are burdened by guilt. Guilt for what they have not achieved or realized, for not fitting into the mold. They too are ensnared by this age's mental pressure, equally vulnerable to the disorders that accompany a society of boundless expectation. The very fetish of permanent growth and novelty is flawed and naive when extended beyond the corporate world. It leads to its very opposite, to inefficiency, trivialized impulses, and misery. There are, however, those rare individuals who do not crumble into ash, who are not swept away like expendable brushwood in the winds of common demands. Their fire is not consumed but eternal, and their eyes shine with an inner vitality that defies the weary resignation of others. They are as rare and precious as the Hyperboreans of myth, those elusive beings from lands beyond the north wind, untouched by ordinary struggles, remote and timeless. These rare souls do not burn through their own energy in some uncontrolled blaze. Rather, they master it. They wield their inner fire with intention, channeling it rather than squandering it. Soon we will see that such a Hyperborean state of being is not a mere utopian, impossible dream, neither a dehumanized metamorphosis into mystical Übermensch, but all that is opposed to burnout and enslavement is at hand. It is more than real for every one of us to take, if only we are truly willing. We have seen that what is called burnout has little to do with labor itself. It stems from self-denial masked as self-interest. Burnout takes root in the depths of personal hypocrisy, when one's outward ambition veils inner emptiness, when energy is spent not in fulfillment but in sacrifice to false idols, simulacrums that do not nourish. To step beyond this, into a space where there is no resentment hiding behind smiles, no hypocrisy, no self-deception, is a radical endeavor. To enter such a realm, or to build it around oneself, demands brave and ruthless honesty. It is to know what you love and whom you love, and to live by that clarity, undistracted by the masks and illusions that weigh down so many. At its core, this whole endeavor means refusing to lie to yourself. What compounds the whole issue is the illusion of relentlessness fostered by empty societal values. We are taught to constantly chase after success, wealth, or status, which leaves both our bodies and minds exhausted. Yet, if we stop tormenting ourselves with these empty pursuits and instead focus on what truly calls us, even our physical capacities seem to expand. They suddenly expand beyond what we thought to be our limits. Then our bodies recover quicker, energized by the authentic fire burning inside, the one which enlightens, not burns our true nature. By doing what you genuinely love, the burnout is impossible. Such activity only creates more energy, mentally and emotionally, although not necessarily physically. When you are passionate enough about the activity that truly satisfies you, it is only your body that gets tired and is struggling to keep up to the enthusiasm of the mind and elevated attitude. In this dimension, burnout, as it is commonly understood, cannot ever haunt you. It very much ceases to exist, since the spirit no longer wastes itself. It finds release in alignment, in a work and life imbued with genuine purpose and companionship. This is the birth of enduring, serene fire that cannot be exhausted. But all this is meant not to say that one should strive to be perpetually inspired. Such an expectation would only create another myth, another impossible standard, built on the same foundation as the relentless achievement. The goal is not to remain naively positive, always upbeat and enthusiastic. Such utopian expectations belong to the same achievement-driven culture that frowns upon those who seek solitude or reject commercial servitude. Instead, the proper aim is to cultivate a life of waging war with exciting external challenges but with peace in our hearts, where we are content with the worth of our actions and the fruits of our creative labor. Inner tranquility, a constant satisfaction with what truly matters, becomes the foundation upon which we build our lives. If this inner beauty is disturbed by ugly accords of overly mundane matters, when our inner voice, instead of singing, is crying out in despair, hatred, or self-objectification, burnout becomes inevitable. Our aim is to reverse this and make it impossible. But when we are at war with ourselves, treating ourselves as mere resources, exploited and objectified, pushed forward into the mist of vague values, we will inevitably find that the results of our efforts are as fragmented and miserable as the process itself. In such a case, burnout will be signalizing symptom of a life lived out of alignment with our true selves. If it still haunts us, then we want to regard it as an alarm, a call to wake up and return to the proper direction. With this in mind, we are ready for the final strategic steps we can arm ourselves with, to be revealed. There are three key parts of the strategic movement to build a meaningful life: mastering the art of free leisure and stress reduction, discovering our primordial and potentially inexhaustible source of energy, life's calling, contemplation of true meaning as connected to the calling, and radical devotion to it. First, the incredible levels of stress surrounding modern life, especially in cities, ought to be reduced. We will use the leverage principle, applying that which gives the most of the beneficial outcome. For our bodies and mind, such will be the three pillars: sleep, exercise, and nutrition. There is a tremendous amount of detailed research on optimizing these aspects of life, so let's focus on the underlying philosophy. Our body is our precious ally, meant to be respected and cared after, not an object to be sacrificed. No other material assets can be more significant. Value a good quality of deep sleep over all other concerns. Sacrificing sleep will come at the expense of everything else concerning your capacities. Use devices such as red lights if necessary. Try to go to sleep extremely early, say well before 8 o'clock in the evening. For some reasons, these hours can yield an unexpected recovery power. Then comes exercise. Any movement and activity is beneficial for your body and mind, increasing your energetic potential and regulating the stress level. Be it a gym, a swimming pool, or just your floor for home workout, it doesn't really matter, as long as you keep your blood flowing. Finally, nutrition. Regard it as the necessary fuel for your body to produce strength. It makes sense to keep your diet rather simplistic and pure. Boiled beans, quinoa, or other grains with species, as well as organic vegetables, berries, and fruits are the most beneficial. If you are drawn to high carbohydrates food, bake your bread at home. Strive to never let your food contact any plastic. Do some research and find out what supplements you can take to handle the stress of your body and ensure it has everything it needs. Particularly consider vitamin D3, magnesium, iodine, omega-3, zinc, saffron, and L-theanine. Such are the three principal tangible leverages for your body. There is another one for which you can apply your intelligence. Try to write down the observations you discover in relation to each of the mentioned pillars. Maybe there is a specific time when you are refreshed in the morning, or a specific exercise regime that is most comfortable, or a specific food after which you feel bad. Write down all such observations and gather all available intelligence to tailor your stress coping decisions. Then comes the leisure. Leisure is the meaningful spending of time, free of any worries, to cultivate calmness and clarity. For the sake of your mental well-being, eliminate any social media and distraction from your life as much as possible, including YouTube and mobile notifications. There is undisputable evidence that it only contributes to deepening the depressive pit. If you need social media for some valuable purpose, set a specific time once in 1 or 2 weeks to review all that you need, and stay completely free of the worry to catch up with anything online during the rest of the time. Treat your smartphone as literally toxic. It's completely serious. If you spend most of the time depending on it, you probably cannot even imagine the level of focus and clarity you are able to reach after some detox. Prefer walks while surrounded by nature. It is extremely therapeutic. If at this time there is no reasonable possibility to go out to nature, then listen to the forest sounds at home. Talk to your dearest friend about something that matters, even for hours. If there is no such friend, then read enjoyable and timeless books in silence and solitude. Write in your journal or simply meditate, with no haste and alertness. Anything like this brings healing, and is far better than being drowned in digital poison. These are the basics of Vita Contemplativa. Finally, take a significant break from your drudgery at work for as long as possible, if you need it, in order to reconsider your priorities about the future. What is most excellent and is most to be desired by all happy, honest, and healthy-minded men is dignified leisure. Cicero. Although a prominence in the art of leisure, rest and relaxation is crucial for cultivating the abundance of bodily and mental energy, it is still not enough to deal with what is called the burnout, even though the satisfaction is much deeper than the suffering. Mindful rest is good, but if the root of anxiety itself is not turned out, then it is only treating the symptoms of a disease, not the cause. If the cause is left unhandled, the condition will return, sooner or later. This cause is that the spirit itself was not only exhausted, it was tormented, buried alive, denied and exploited, crucified, sacrificed, undignified, dishonored. It is time to set it free, assert its dignity and grant it the much-deserved respect. It can be done by discovering your inner source of potentially inexhaustible asserting power. It is only potentially inexhaustible. You may still need subsequent rest in the process, at least for your flesh. This source is inexhaustible for your mind in the first place, centering around the value you can never turn your back on, the essential part of your being, the abandoning of which for you is as good as death. After all, the unawareness of this essence is what makes burnout a slow dying. You want to discover your life's task by identifying your natural strength and activities or subjects you are drawn to in a way impossible to explain. Look for the hints in your childhood. Were there any specific objects, topics, or things that fascinated you? Is there something you enjoyed doing or exploring that feels naturally easier to you? In his book, The Frames of Mind, Howard Gardner formulated several main inborn categories of intelligence. Logical mathematical intelligence, the ability to reason, to use logic and mathematics to solve problems and to understand abstract concepts. Linguistic intelligence, the ability to use language to express oneself, to understand complex language, and to use language to solve problems. Spatial intelligence, the ability to visualize and manipulate objects in 3 dimensions, to create mental images, and to use spatial reasoning. Bodily kinesthetic intelligence, the ability to control one's body movements and to coordinate movement and action. Musical intelligence, the ability to perceive, understand, and create music, and to use music to express oneself. Interpersonal intelligence, the ability to understand and communicate with others, to work effectively in groups, and to empathize. Intrapersonal intelligence, the ability to understand oneself, to have self-awareness, and to be able to reflect on one's own thoughts and emotions. Examine all of these types and look for occupations that are derived from one or more of them. For instance, linguistic intelligence means you are inclined to work with words, like a writer. Intrapersonal and interpersonal intelligence speak of those who are good with people, like counselors and teachers. Once the overall directions of your interest are detected, you want to boldly experience various skills and activities and immerse yourself in those fields. Over time, with multiple attempts, the perfect occupational solution will become increasingly clear. In this way, you can find the type of work you can let yourself to be completely absorbed by, fueling further inspiration instead of draining out your sense of joy. Finally, it is time for the last key: contemplation of true meaning as connected to the calling and radical devotion to it. What does it mean at all? Well, it is that ruthless, brutal honesty in terms of assessing your true values and the current state of being. Examine as frankly as possible where you ended up so far. What do you feel that most of the pain comes from? Is it the job, the people around, or some of your beliefs? I must bring to the forefront the importance of social influence on us. True fellowship and sincerity are as rare as diamonds. It is most likely that your working conditions are unbearable due to the personalities that surround you, bringing about the burnout and mental disease. Having a healthy community is invaluable, and we will stress out this question on future occasions. For now, I encourage you all to connect in the commentary and offer mutual support in overcoming the struggle of a pathetic, toxic social climate. What you can do by yourself in the meantime is remember what you truly feel connected to, feel called and destined to do. Then compare it with the path you are on right now. Is there any point to continue this path? Will you dare to reevaluate your priorities and bring about drastic, radical change if needed? Are you willing to live with less conformity and more devotion to what truly matters to you? If nothing seems clear still, then try to answer this simple question. Will you regret about it before you die? Affirmative answer stands for the false path, and the negative answer indicates the path leading to genuine fulfillment. All this will take some courage, readiness to value your true purpose over money and even over securing excessive comfort. It all may seem quite risky, but even poverty and hunger is not so disastrous as a mediocre, empty-souled living. If you are living by what you love, even if it means poverty for a while, then you are not actually that poor. If living does not fulfill you, then what is the whole point? Can you afford spending all your best years on mere material necessity? Confusing fundamental values with superficial will eventually catch up with us. There are mistakes that come at too great, irreversible cost. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power and magic in it. Goethe's Faust. I wish you to know that, after all, after you will break free, embrace the fruit of meaning and make the burnout a distant myth of your past, you may feel grateful for the tough challenges you have been through. Finding what you look for lies right on the other side of despair. Let us be here for each other. I encourage you to share your thoughts, your critique, your feelings and insights to mutually enrich and enlighten others on such vital matters. If you wish to dive deeper into anything discussed in this letter, find links for further reading in the pinned commentary. I, the thinker, am here for you. I am precisely as much a child of this postmodern age as any of you. I will do what is in my power to face the threats and adversities of this age. Farewell for now, and don't waste your fire.